Hello, everybody. This is Bart Bettiga, publisher of TileLetter magazine and the executive director of the National Tile Contractors Association. And welcome to another edition of TileLetter One-to-One. I have with me a very special guest, Matt Saltzman. Is that correct, Matt?
That is correct.
I always got to make sure I get my pronunciation right. And you are the CEO of Louisville Tile. Louisville Tile is a long-standing independent distribution partner of the NTCA, member of the Ceramic Tile Distributors Association. Matt, you've not been in this role for long. So before we get into a little bit about Louisville Tile, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and how you came to be CEO at Louisville Tile.
Okay, that's really a good way to start and a fair question. I do not come from the tile industry. In fact, I knew very little about tile before I got here. My background is primarily finance and Wall Street. I come from New York, and I learned quickly that when I said I'm in Louisville, they said, no, it's Louisville.
So I probably already screwed that up. So thank you for correcting me.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Believe me, it's a rite of passage. You just you kind of learn that you have to slur your way through, and after a week at the Derby, you understand exactly where it comes from. So. It's my background is Wall Street. I came out of some of the major houses. I started a number of years ago, back in the early 80s and mid 80s on Wall Street, did that for a number of years, and then was recruited out to Louisville, where I actually managed JP Morgan for Kentucky and Tennessee. And then I had my own business for a number of years where I did primarily turnarounds, change management,
Gotcha.
Resets of vintage companies that needed to just have some change and some leadership. Did a lot of M&A and a lot of capital sourcing and structuring. Through that, I was brought in to help Louisville Tile basically reset their banking relationships. And as we did that, we uncovered a number of things there that the board wanted to address that had not been addressed in a while. And they really wanted to modernize and bring the company up to state of the art. And so at the end of the assignment, when we recapitalized the bank and recapitalized the company, and reset the stage, there was some project work that had to be done. And so in January of 2021, we had a discussion. They asked me if I would stay on and take this on as a project. So I brought my team in, and we worked with them over the course of a year, all of 21, to essentially set processes and policies in place, to put structures in place, to put some financial controls, to really look at how the mission and vision of the company looked. And shortly thereafter, I got there. Somebody had warned me. They said, well, if you get into tile, you'll never leave. Yes. And I laughed. And here I am.
Yeah.
So
So Louisville Tile was family owned, goes back to like 1955. So tell us a little bit about that, and what was it that made you, because you didn't have to do this. You had a lot of other opportunities here, but you decided, because now you are an employee, you are the CEO now.
I'm a full-time W-2 employee, CEO with a long-term contract, with a serious mission and a serious agenda of what we have to do. So it's a family-owned business, and I have to say it's an amazing family, just terrific people, which when you get to be our age, you understand that time is more important than money.
Absolutely.
And the people that you spend that time with is even more important than the time that you have.
Yeah.
So I made a decision that this was a great opportunity. We mutually came together and decided that this is something we'd want to do long-term together. And I took the year. I had given them a year commitment on the contract. I fulfilled that commitment, and at the same time fulfilled the commitment to my other 6 clients. So I essentially worked 2 sets of jobs, right, full time for a year, brought in my team. And the objective really is to take the company and transform it into the absolute market leader and dominant distribution company of the future.
So that segues to me. I've been, you don't know that much about me, but way before I've been the NTCA executive director for 20 years, but I used to be in distribution. I was actually the president of the CTBA 22 years ago. So I've been watching distribution in tile, and it's really changed. It is changing. And I've watched the evolution of the big box stores and all of that. So what did you see here, Matt, that intrigued you, and what are the plans? I mean, you're what I would say almost like a super regional distributor, family owned. But are you planning to, there's the Arizona Tiles, the Bedrosians, the Emsers, and MSI. Some of these companies have taken regional and almost are starting to move towards half the country, or even complete, distribution in almost every major market. What are your plans, or any plans you can share about growth with me?
Absolutely. I think it's a fair question. Yeah. When you look at Louisville Tile, we're in 5 states, 12 branches right now.
Okay.
And distribution is changing. This is a family-run business predominantly that has been muscled up by a second or third generation. And it's one of the last businesses that has not been rolled up or really consolidated at this point. There are a few players trying to do that, but it takes a certain combination of things. Number one, in this day and age, is technology. And that was something that was a little foreign to Louisville Tile when I got there. The technology was everybody had a laptop and they thought they were technologically advanced.
Yeah, that's a little bit in all of tile distribution, I think. That's one thing that I think you're going to help change. That's great.
And that is that's the primary focus of what we're doing, is that we are a technology and data company. Mm-hmm. So with data, we have information. With information, we can make decisions. So the first thing we did was we got control of the finances. And I'm going to answer your question about where the vision is going.
No, it's fine. I think this is good.
We got control of the finances and really created financial transparency. We couldn't get our hands around the numbers before, which is kind of why we had problems with the banks. But we drove in, got all the numbers together, put them into a system where we could get daily dashboards, we could get decision-making points, data points. I brought in 3 Wall Street analysts with me who weren't part of my team before, brought a whole new perspective to the company. And then the first hire that I made was an outstanding CFO. And I brought in an outstanding CFO who came from the University of Louisville as a controller and a treasurer, and really had the background, both entrepreneurial and corporate, and understood how to handle this stuff. After that, it became a talent acquisition. And that was really, you asked where we're growing in talent, what we're doing in acquisition.
And you've had a lot of moves. Yeah, you've made
right. Before you can take territory, you better have the right people on your boat with you, because otherwise you're going to wind up in a big trouble. Mm-hmm. So I went out and we really recruited, both inside and outside the industry, tremendous amount of talent. When we had that talent, we put it into the slots, because we did a complete reorganization of the company into a command and control structure that was a hierarchy that would allow us to have accountability, would allow us to have execution, would allow us to be strategic and execute tactically. With all that talent, what we've now done is built a platform. We have technology, we have people, we have resources. Financially, we have no debt, and we've been able to secure lots of credit. So we are very, very powerful, and we have a bulletproof balance sheet. We've engineered everything as a platform for the answer to your question, which is, we do not intend to take over the world, but we do intend to expand our footprint in the geography that we're in. And we expect that within the next 2 to 3 years, you will be talking about Louisville Tile in the same breath that you talk about Arizona Tile or a Virginia Tile or an Emser, where we will be a very significant regional player. And you could probably run your fingers down the middle of the map and you'll find us.
Yeah, that's really a great segue for me. So you mentioned your CFO, but you've brought on, it almost looks to me like you've installed an executive leadership team, a senior management team, a sales team. You've got to be very adept at importing and balancing domestic vendors with import strategies. Can you tell me a little bit about how much of that's been going on behind the scenes while you're still Louisville Tile, who all of our at least customers in the Midwest, Southeast here are comfortable with.
Right. And this will get directly to your point on when you asked in the beginning about what we do with vendors.
Yeah.
So we have put together a structure where not only do we have an executive leadership team, which was the first thing we created, we then enabled middle management to become senior management team. So we have the second generation lined up. So we now have succession. And we have people who've been in the business a long time and been able to promote from within and been able to elevate people to be in a position to be trained in things they've never seen before, such as corporate structures, policies, and mentored properly. Then we created a North-South region, and we have North-South regional managers of the branches for the branch managers. We have North-South regional managers for the external salespeople. They're out on the street. And for the first time, we also created general managers of the showrooms, North and South, because the showrooms are our primary front-facing distribution system. They're actually also in sales, and we've coordinated, integrated all of that into one. We've brought in an external VP of logistics who comes from Caterpillar Logistics at one point. So we've got a very experienced logistics manager now, to your point of what are we doing behind the scenes.
Yep. We've
brought in an efficiency expert who's a VP of operations, but really is our corporate muse and is the fixer inside. And if you've ever seen Billions, she's our Wendy.
Yeah, I love that show.
Yep, she's our Wendy. And then we've brought in a chief marketing officer as our last piece. So we now have a chief marketing officer to be able to promote what we actually can digest. The platform is set, and we are now looking seriously at organic growth through accountable sales plans and what we call accountable execution. And we're complementing that with a very serious, as I told you, my background is capital structuring and M&A and turnarounds. We're now complementing it with a very serious M&A structure and an acquisition program that I think over the next 3 to 5 years, we will be probably 2.5 times the size we are today.
That's fantastic. So you've been a tile and stone distributor. As I mentioned earlier, distribution has really evolved and changed. You've seen strong flooring companies that carry more than just tile or stone. Are you looking at any other products, or are you focusing on tile and stone, or are you looking at other hard surface products to add to your locations?
We are looking at product diversification, because coming from Wall Street, I learned very early diversification is the equivalent of real estate, location. And one of the things that was interesting is we've created different relationships with our vendor partners. And yesterday we had a meeting with a major partner of ours. And I said, so what we're doing is different. How does it feel to you? And the CEO looked at me and said, you're absolutely correct. He said, the old model was load 'em and loyalty.
Yeah.
He said, loaded and loyalty. He said, that doesn't work anymore. And we've evolved from that. And I said, no, I need different things. I want you to carry the inventory. I need to be just in time. I'm not going to buy every product line and every SKU that you have. I'm going to tell you what we're going to take. And we now also brought in Jeff Starr, who's a very experienced industry person. And we have created a new product area, but actually Jeff is a portfolio manager. He is picking the portfolio for us along with Jen, and they are determining what portfolio we want to carry. We will be able to deliver results to our preferred partners and our vendor partners in terms of quotas. We will only sell what we want to sell. We will be able to replicate throughout our system and have scale. And we will be able to take some of the McDonald's theory of whenever you walk into a Louisville Tile, it may look a little different in the building, but your experience is going to be relatively the same. And our value proposition, which is what's critical, the value proposition, which has been missing in the tile distribution industry and in the tile manufacturing industry. Because if you think about it, the normal person that walks into a tile store, they buy it based on how it looks. Nobody asks you the viscosity. Nobody asks you the glaze. Nobody asks you the compression. Nobody asks you how long it lasts. They just look at what it looks like. So the brand value of tile as a brand name is far different than Foot Locker, where you buy Nike or Reebok or something else. So we're going to absorb the brand value because we're going to basically be similar to the farm to table concept. We're curating the right tomatoes. We're curating the right tile. We're curating the right portfolio, highly selective, taking the best of the best. And when somebody comes to Louisville Tile, they will know that what we're here to do is to advise and consult to them and help them get the best solution to make their dreams come true and have the experience they want with that tile, because this is not something that you can peel away and re-stick something new in easily. This stuff sticks around for a while.
More of a permanent product. So if I'm reading you right, you're telling me you're going to build the brand Louisville Tile rather than worry about all the different products you import and trying to build those specific brands.
It may not be Louisville Tile brand. It may be a private label brand that we borrow off of somebody that we may acquire or create our own. That's a luxury perception and a portfolio perception. But it will extend to the experience for our end consumer, whomever that may be, dealer, retail, architect and design, commercial, whatever it may be, contractor. It will extend to them in a way that they understand that coming to us is not about buying a commodity or a product, because we don't want to race to the bottom, which is where tile distribution is going when they compete with the big boxes. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah.
We will provide a value proposition that supersedes the commodity of the tile, and the tile we give them will be the highest quality available. However, to answer your question, we also intend to extend into all the ancillary products that are there. When I come out of Wall Street, we talked about wallet share. And the reason that we were successful is that people want insurance, they want estate planning, they want stocks, they want bonds. You have to be able to offer all of it, because if you can't service all the needs of your client holistically, you really are only a part-time advisor, not a trusted advisor. So we're looking at LVP. We're looking at slabs. We're looking at ancillary products, such as sinks or other things. All of these things are natural integration points for us. And with a distribution channel, which is owning the roads, then it doesn't matter how many cars come along, as long as they stop at our restaurants and eat all the food on our menu.
Yeah. Yeah. It almost feels like it's a natural evolution to have to diversify if you're going to compete moving forward with the way the market has just evolved.
Look, if I had been all in international tile and sourced everything overseas, I'd be in big trouble right now.
I agree.
And if I'm only tile and overseas, I'm in even bigger trouble. But if I have different market segments and I can create something, which I haven't quite figured out yet, but if I can create something that has recurring revenue streams, some type of service product that gives us recurring revenue streams and keeps us with our clients on an ongoing basis to have a dialogue and continuous with them, it's much more powerful. If you only do one podcast, you don't have a relationship with your audience. But if you have 10,000 subscribers, you now have the ability to have a continuous dialogue. And if something goes off in one part, you have multiple products, you can continue to service these people wherever they are.
Yeah, that's great. Tell me a little bit about the sales strategy while I have you. You've got commercial and residential, very different. Are you creating different divisions? What's your concept related to how you're going after the market?
We actually did the opposite.
Okay.
To me, a salesperson is a salesperson. So they need to report up to the manager, who needs to understand the whole chain, because what I've discovered is that this is very much like the 4x4 relay race. Somebody's got a baton. They've got it. It's that 2 seconds of handoff that makes a difference. The A&D rep has got to be able to hand it off to the contractor. The contractor at some point has to be able to bring it back to the showroom, because that's where they're serviced. And they all have to be functioning on the same team and have their own roles. So although we have segmented salespeople who are dedicated to channels, they all flow into the same sales program, and it's a holistic viewpoint. And so we have collapsed that into understanding that it's all about activity-based, and our partnership with Salesforce.com allows us to have an absolute backbone of data that allows us to service that customer and client as a much higher level. And that's a key differentiation. We're moving from customers to having clients.
I like that, what you're saying. So Salesforce.com or Salesforce is a software, right, that you're using to manage.
It's an enterprise customer relationship management software that does everything. We actually can do credit. We install credit apps through it. We can order samples through it. We can get approvals from the branch manager through it. We can see sales pipelines through it. People have transparency in the organization to each other. So your experience with us, whether it's me or Joe, who picks up the phone and talks to you, can pull up your record and we can tell you every conversation and we can give you a seamless customer experience that really lets you know that we care about you.
Yeah, just talking to you about this, I'm going longer, but I just think this is fascinating.
I'll stay with you as long as you want.
I always felt like, now that I represent the labor side, the contracting side, commercial and residential, it felt to me like the tile contractor had the relationship with the builder, remodeler, and often the general contractor. The distributor was there playing around, working with the designer, the specifier, the architect. And a lot of times you had problems in that situation because you had prices quoted to the architect. You hadn't talked to the contractor about their labor. So by you building this into it, you're really creating more the whole client, that communication has to take place through the whole process is really what I was hearing you say. And the salesperson's involved with both sides on the way you're looking at it.
And multiple salespeople get involved in the process. So we have to have transparency and communication internally in order to give the client, who as you describe it, the client may be a microcosm where it's just the contractor in this conversation, but the contractors it's kind of like that old thing, the knee bone's connected to the thigh bone, to this bone. The contractor's connected to the builder. The builder's connected to the designer. The designer's connected to the person who's actually writing the check at the end of the day, as they all are.
Yeah, that's the client, right? The whole thing is, exactly.
It's an ecosystem. We're here to serve the entire ecosystem. And that is one of the transformational pieces that I noticed here, which was a complete elevation of thinking, because we used to have somebody managing just the architects and design, somebody managing just the dealer contractors. The showroom ran unchecked, maybe managed by a branch manager, maybe just checked off by a branch manager. But without accountability and coordination and collaboration, you just have a mess. I'm going to get you dressed in the best pants, in the best suit possible, but the shirt is checkered, the pants are plaid, and the jacket is orange. They're all the best, but they don't really look very good in combination on you.
That's great. Well, since I have you, I'm shifting. I want your, you're in Louisville Tile is in this change. Great. I'm excited about the company. And all of a sudden, we're dealing with supply crisis issues, inflation that is affecting, I know on our end, contractors in their trucks, gas tanks. Your pricing is not something the contractors have been able, and not you particular, but tile pricing and installation material pricing has been challenged. And so, price protection for the customers has been an issue. And a war in Ukraine, which you think wouldn't affect tile so much, but it significantly affects tile because of the amount that we import from Europe.
Can't get the mud.
Yeah. What are the things that that your company is looking at, and what are your challenges, or what's your thought on how we're coming out of that, or where we're at right now with all?
Okay, that's a deep question with multiple parts. So let me see if I can parse that for you. The first part I think you're asking me is, we have this whole macro situation, this global situation of macro factors. How are you preparing and dealing with it as a company?
Yeah.
The second thing you're asking me is, what do I see happening in the world, and what's the outcome of that going to be, and how's that going to impact us? I think those are the two
affect
pieces.
us in tile and affect your company. Yeah.
Right. So let me answer the first one first. There are many macro factors out there. Ukraine, clearly, because of the sourcing of the dirt and the mud, and what the production of that means is a problem, and it's going to come home to roost eventually. The containers on the water is a problem. The tariffs are a problem. the supply chain of labor and the pandemic, all that is stuffed up. So what we've done is, number one, we have shifted a lot of our sourcing domestically. Kentucky and Tennessee have great production capabilities. There are other production capabilities here. So we've been able to source that. We've also enhanced our relationship with partners who have the capacity to store and have brought over a tremendous amount of storage and warehousing here. So supply is here. Yep. The second thing that we've done is internally, we focused on the inflation that you mentioned, the pricing. We get price increases almost every week from somebody, and whatever it is, it's way out of hand right now. And only people that look like you and I remember the 70s and the early 80s. So what we did was, number one, when I first got here, I knew this was coming because it's just basic supply and demand. I've been in Wall Street too long, and I knew we were going to have inflation. You can't spend like this and not have it. So I worked very hard, and we cleaned up all debt on our balance sheet. So we had no debt. Second thing was, I locked in rates in the 3s and prime minus a half on our lines of credit that we don't use. The next thing that I did was I started building cash. So we've got huge cash reserves now because I started really managing the money, and it wasn't by cutting bodies. I actually increased payroll by $2 million because I needed talent. So I reinvested money and reallocated from stupid things into people and into training and into systems and technology and efficiencies. So we have that. We've also, I told you I brought in the Wall Street analyst. We are in the process of creating and almost done a predictive macroeconomic model that, based on external macroeconomic factors, we can predict how our sales are going to be based on what we're doing and the macroeconomic factor impact. So we're going to have predictive analytics inside there, which is nobody else has in this industry or has any idea of. Once we have all that, we then put in a purchasing department that creates centralized par levels in our warehouses. So we cut down on inventory, and we're getting higher turns because we're managing it efficiently. We brought in the logistics person so we can move the trucks and get the pricing there. And then, of course, like everybody else in the industry, we have a false sense of success right now because everybody in this industry is passing through price increases and selling average cost stuff that they bought long ago. So their margins are all expanding, but it's all nonsense because at the end, it's going to catch up to you and flip, and you're going to have a problem when it turns down.
Exactly.
So we recognize that. So we're being very careful in the financial engineering and have strengthened our financial sources. So we've done everything we can to prepare internally for it. What I see, and through that, we've been able to mitigate some of the price increases that we have. We've been able to order smarter. We've been able to stay more current. And really, your other question you asked me about changing the sales channel, sales cures a lot of ills. My main goal here is that when everybody else falls 15 and 20% behind, if I can be anywhere from -2 to +3, that makes me 20% better than everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's just really a really great answer, and thank you.
And I want to answer the second part too.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so yeah, I mean, I think our listeners
what do I see?
are curious. Yeah, what do you think? And I know you're not a futurist or an economist, but because of your Wall Street.
No, actually, I am an economist by background.
There you go. So I'm going to take advantage of that.
Well, I'm going to tell you what I see. Yeah. I think that you have wages that are sticky.
Yeah.
And I think the labor market will be the one beneficiary of this, in that the tight supply of labor will begin to change, because I do believe in the midterms, there'll be a major change. I don't believe that you're going to be able to have these huge spending programs come through because of the inflation. There is a lot of money still out in the system that's floating out there, but through the quantitative tightening of the Fed and the reduction in the easing, it's going to get very tight. Housing starts have some demographics to them that are going to make it continue to go. But I think the commercial space may suffer a little bit because there's still going to be a resistance to return to work. And I don't think that the urban cities are going to be building as quickly as they can. And some of the rehabs and the redos on the buildings are going to be delayed. So I think there's going to be some drag in the commercial side. I think in the dealer markets, the solution set to the dealer markets is that we don't want to be competing with them, which a lot of distributors are going to be, because they're all fighting for the same customer, and it's going to be a race to the bottom. The dealers want bigger margins. We're going to be treated as a commodity. We're going to a private label strategy where we will only supply private label into the dealer markets. We have more room for margin. We also can create brand for them and value, and we're moving to a high technology position in the distribution through the dealer markets by being able to place kiosks and electronic things in there that are going to be very, very powerful, because the one thing we all face is the $1 million question of, in some cases, 2 million. How do you combat this whole sample thing and get rid of this overhead of samples that's killing you?
I can only imagine. Yeah.
So we're working on that now. I think that you probably have 6 to 9 months of bouncing around here. I do believe that somewhere in 23, it's going to get pretty nasty for a period of time, and you're going to have a natural correction that's going to wash a lot of excess out of the system. Just remember, this is still capitalism, and we eat the weak.
Yeah. What about, we survive a lot. The tile industry really focuses also on the remodeling side, and with inflation and spending dollars, what are your concerns there on the remodeling side?
I think there's still going to be a tremendous amount of remodeling because of one factor: the ability to be mobile and move from your home to another one is somewhat mitigated because of the supply of homes, because they didn't build any or what they needed. If you look at the housing starts from 11 and 12 on, you're millions of units short. And there's a new phenomena if you look at the demographics of age, in that these what do they call them, the Xers, the Gen Xers and the millenniums. The millenniums have finally decided at 35 that mommy's basement may not be the place to be.
They're finally buying houses. Yeah. Or remodeling.
Well, they're buying homes, and they're one of the largest blips in there. If you look at they're an echo generation, which is a large generation. So there's a lot of demand there. The problem is that our generation is living longer. Yeah. We don't want to be in the warehouse that our great grandparents were in, where you live in a little brick room and the nurse comes and wheels you around all day.
Exactly.
So we're aging in place. There's an aging demographic of aging in place. That is one of the areas of opportunity where, as you age in place, there are different things that the older generation needs. The hard surfaces are very hard for older generations because of slips and falls and things like that. So movement to an LVP or other types of surfaces are going to be important. The ability for them to swap out of their home is, if you're like me, I'm looking at it saying, look, I come home, I live in 3 or 4 rooms, I'm in that room, my world is outside, my world is with people. I don't really want to sell my home for X and go into what I want for 2X and take on a new mortgage at this stage. I'd rather just stay where I am, and to your point, maybe put some dollars in there. So I think there's a remodeling effort in some of it where they'll do bathrooms, they'll do some kitchens, they'll do things like that. But that means our showrooms have to be more acutely attuned to that. That's why we're training them and putting in the technology that we are. In the dealer markets, multifamily homes, building, those are people that are going to move to a more mass-produced end, in my opinion. And I think the days of we used to call them McMansions. I think the days of those, of people building, I guess $2 and $3 million homes, what used to be $700, $800, $1 million homes. I think people building $2 and $3 million homes is a smaller end of the market, and you're going to have to figure out how you service that middle part of the market with reasonable amounts. And the dealer markets are going to find themselves, I believe, competing with the Home Depots and the Lowe's of the world, who are starting to move upstream but have huge girth. And I can see a Walmart renaissance where, not Walmart itself, but if you remember, there used to be 1,000 clothing stores all over the place, and Walmart came to town, wiped out the local hardware guy, wiped out the clothing person.
Yeah.
And I think that the Lowe's in this area and the Home Depots, there are more of them coming closer together that's going to happen. Costco is doing more of this stuff. You're going to, and people
Internet,
don't
right? Even
distinguish it.
people buying on the internet, even people buying on the internet, Amazon, right, might come into this stuff.
Well,
So,
we are going to find an e-commerce solution, because I believe you can sell this digitally. And I believe that we can find an e-commerce solution to this. The key is going to be the fulfillment end of it. But to your point, there is this little company out there that is not a website. They are truly a fulfillment company, and their name is Amazon.
exactly.
And at some point, working with the manufacturers the way that we do, I can see a day where we can actually have the tiles shipped from Crossville, Tennessee, directly to a fulfillment center in Bozeman, Montana, and have Amazon deliver this stuff.
You don't have to touch it, right?
I don't have to touch it. I can sell it over the internet and just have it fulfilled and distributed out. And it costs me a lot less than brick and mortar. And they make their 15, 20%. And I spend a lot less than brick and mortar, and I'm in good shape.
Yeah, this is great. I've really enjoyed this. My last question is, with all of this change, movement to technology, all of implementation, adding payroll, my guys are the contractors. You're the tile contractors that come in and do business with you, the installation contractors. Louisville Tile's always been, we've worked with Don Kincaid for years. We've always been supported in efforts to train, to educate. Will you continue to sustain that customer-focused, supportive role that you have always played in our market?
Actually, we're going to do more.
That's
We
great.
actually have now, we now have 2 technical trainers. We had Mark before, Mark Mulroney.
Yep.
And now we have Thomas Cotty, who has joined him. And we now have a North and a South to mirror the whole thing, a North and a South trainer. And we also created something I didn't tell you about called Branch Team Support, which is a centralized hub for supporting all the branches. Within that, we've now created and sanctioned Louisville Tile University. Louisville Tile University is continuing education for ourselves, but it's also part of the value proposition we provide to clients. We want to be able to train people on this, train them on the Schluters, the Mapis, the techs of the world.
Yep.
And be
Your
able-
vendors. Yeah, your products. Yeah.
and be able to offer those services. In fact, we are in the very early stages of working on a collaboration with an educational group that would allow us to basically support the training and education of new installers, new tile people, because as you know, that's one of the big problems. This thing is, this is not work that you and I want to be doing at our age. This is a young person's game to install that tile. It takes a big toll on your body.
It does.
And we don't have a lot of supply of it, like all the technical trades. So we have to really help create and facilitate and support the advancement of the technical aspect of it that either lets them do it in an easier fashion physically, gives them better tools, gives them better education. And for us, a better educated employee, a better educated vendor, a better educated contractor partner is a better partner, period.
So thank you again for being my guest. We've been speaking with Matt Saltzman, the new CEO, refreshing outlook. We're just thankful to have you in the tile business, Matt.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you for joining our industry. He's the CEO of Louisville Tile. Great, longstanding independent distribution company since 1955. Thanks for being our guest on TileLetter. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much, Bart. This has been terrific, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And anytime you want to give me a call, just let me know.
Great. Thanks, everyone.